So is the screen visible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So once again, a warm welcome. We will be looking at these aspects today. Broadly, we will quickly look at what is open access. Then we will see what is open access publishing. Then we will take a look at self-archiving and the policies of publishers in terms of self-archiving. Then we will see how to avoid predatory publishers. And then we will look at what are the tools which you can use for selecting journals. So open access is a system of providing access to knowledge resources for public use without any payment or any charges. That is the concept behind open access. And all legal, financial, and technical barriers to knowledge resources are removed in open access. There are no barriers between the readers and the article. In traditional access, I believe all of you know that either your institution will have to pay a subscription and buy that journal and keep it in the library, and you will have to come and read it. Or if you are subscribing yourself, you will have to pay money and subscribe to the journal directly. While in open access, that doesn't apply. However, all standards of scholarly publishing, including peer reviews, will be followed in open access. When we say open access, it is just that anybody can just publish any substandard article or anything. It's not like that. And in open access, all types of publications such as journal articles, books, conference papers, reports, even data are also now available. I believe you know the concept behind the commercial publications, right? Where as researcher, all of you will be doing hard work, learning things and putting up your studies and building up data and concepts, and then you will read through your literature. Then you will come up with the results. Then what you will do is you will prepare a publication and you will publish it in a commercial journal. What happens is there is no incentive for you as an author. However, as a librarian or as the institution, we will have to pay money and subscribe to those publications, buy them, and keep it in the library. So who actually is making money in this system? In commercial access, right? So it's basically that it is the commercial publisher who is actually an intermediary and who gets the entire benefit out of the system, where author doesn't gain anything financially and the readers also doesn't gain anything. On top of it, readers, if they have to use it, either their institution will have to pay money and get those publications, or they themselves will have to buy the publication and put it into use, right? So that is the concept which was prevalent. However, some 20 years back, by the time the new millennium was born, this had led to a lot of issues actually. A bit of scholars and researchers started revolting against this system where knowledge is always behind a paywall. That's what we call it, right? There is a payment involved, and beyond that wall, if you have to look at the knowledge, you will have to make a payment. So that led to a lot of issues, and they were actually fighting for a system where knowledge is made available free without any restriction for everybody to use. And this movement became very popular over a period of time because it stood for unrestricted access and unrestricted reuse of resources. There were three attributes to open access. One was that it was essentially digital in nature because information technology had proliferated by that time and internet access was coming up in a big way. Devices were available, either mobile phones or laptops or personal computers were available. and people were able to access materials on the internet. So online access was free in that sense. Only your access for your communication, you'll have to pay the money. And in open access, there was no copyright restriction as it is for sharing or reusing the materials. Because it comes with an essential right. You can see that orange button on the top right side where the lock shows as unlocked, which means it is not at all under a lock and key. Which means if you see that symbol on a publication, it stands for open access. You are free to use, you are free to share, you are free to download and read and put it into use. However, remember that when I say copyright doesn't apply, it is the commercial part of the copyright that doesn't apply. The information right of the author, as what we call as the IPR, the intellectual property rights of the author, will apply, which means as a user, you will have to provide proper citation and referencing. That would apply, but the commercial right will not apply. Hence, knowledge will be available free for everybody. And 3 specific initiatives. Am I going too fast or anything?
No, sir.
Okay.
It is okay.
Thank you. So the 3 specific initiatives came up in the first half of the new millennium. These 3 statements of initiatives helped in a great way to push the open access initiative forward. One was the Budapest Open Access Initiative, which happened in 2002. Second was the Bethesda Statement of Open Access Publishing in 2003. And third one was the Berlin Declaration of Open Access Knowledge, again in 2003. So these 3 initiatives established the fundamental ideas and principles of open access.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, the slides are not moving, sir. We are in the first slide.
Yes, we are still in the first slide.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So these 3 initiatives helped the way in establishing the principles of open access. And these 3 were wholeheartedly supported by a large number of institutions, knowledge bodies, scholarly initiatives who are involved in academic research. And what are the types of open access publishing? If you look at traditional publishing, we discussed it already, that in traditional publishing model, the reader or the library or the institution will make the payment and buy the resources and keep it in the library and put it into use on behalf of the institution, right? However, in open access, the concept is different, where the access to the material is always free. So different types of open access systems came into being. They are broadly categorized into gold open access, hybrid open access, green open access, and diamond open access. In gold open access, publishing in open access journals of reputed publishers became the norm of the day. Even though commercial publishers were still coming up with subscription-based commercial journals, they also started providing a separate stream for open access journals also. And the publication cost for that, of course, there is a payment for everything, right? Nothing is free in this world anyway. So somebody will have to bear the cost for everything. And in this case, in gold open access, the system was that whatever is the cost for the publication, it was broadly called as APC, the article processing charges. This was covered by the author or the author's institution, or if it is under a project, the project would fund the same. And the publisher would be providing these journals under open access license so that it will be available for all readers free of cost. Understand the difference, right? On one side, there is a commercial journal which will be available only for subscription, while on the other side, the same publisher will have another journal which will be available under open access license. So if that is the case, that is called gold open access, which is done by commercial publishers, right? And second one is hybrid open access. In hybrid open access, the concept is slightly different from gold open access. Here, the subscription based journals itself will allow certain articles under open access license if it is demanded by the author. The concept remains the same. The article processing charges will be paid by the author or author's institution, or if it is a project, the project funding body will be paying that article processing charges, and those articles will remain under open access. Even though the journal would be a subscribed paid journal, those articles which the authors demand that it should be under open access will be available for free for everybody to use, right? So you understood that, which is called hybrid, because the same journal will have some portion under commercial access and some portion under open access. The third is called green open access. Green open access is also called self-archiving. The authors, when you publish a journal article, authors can self-archive a copy of their publication in a publicly available, trusted digital repository. It can be your personal website, or it can be the website of, it can be the digital library of your institution, or there are publicly available open access digital repositories also. So these three places can be chosen by the author, and based on the publisher's policy, you can archive your publication. And what can you archive? You can archive different versions of your publication. One is called preprint, the second is called postprint author, and the third is called postprint publisher. These three are your versions of the manuscripts. We will look at that in the next stage of this class. And there is a, like, different publishers have different policies of self-archiving. So all that had led to a lot of confusions for authors. So one initiative came up, which is called Sherpa Romeo, which have brought together all the policies of publishers of prominent publications, and so that authors can look at it and decide in which self-archiving facility they can use. So that is called green open archives. And another category is Diamond Open Archive. Diamond Open Archive is completely free. They don't even charge article processing charges. Then how do they manage to run the journal? These journals are usually funded by institutions or scholarly societies or universities or research institutions, etc. All the work, including the editorial work, the peer reviews, the formatting, etc., all are done by volunteers. Volunteers doesn't really mean that it will be substandard. No, all the standards of publications will be met under Diamond Archives also, Open Archive also. So in that sense, that is also a very good model which has come up recently. In fact, I could very well proud to be say that I am actually editor of a journal which is released under Diamond Open Archives. Now, what
Sir,
are the, yes, please.
So, in the case of green open access, only the archives will be available, right?
See, authors, of course, will be publishing your journal article in a journal, right? However, as an author, you have right to one particular version of an article, which you can archive on your own. Even though the article will be published in a journal and it will be available separately, as an author, your right also is protected under Open Archive license. So you can self-archive that article separately. And for that, you have three options. One, you can self-archive it in your own website if you have a website on your own, or you can archive it in your own institution's digital library, just like we have a digital library in CDS. So if you publish an article and you have a copy, you give it to us, we will archive it here in our digital library so that it will be available for everybody. Or there are open access trusted third party archives like Archive is, we will look at that separately when we look at it in detail. There are separate third party archives also, like Repec. I believe most of you have used it, right? Repec is there. Then MPRA is there, the Munich Personal Repec Archives is there for economics students. So like that, then SSRN is there, Social Science Research Network is there. So there are several such open archive third-party institution, third-party repositories are also available, right? So you can actually self-archive your publication in one of them. Which version, we will look at it separately. There are three versions of it also. You can't always self-archive the final version that is published in a journal. Some of them will allow only a preprint. Preprint is the draft version that you submit to the journal editor. And post-print author version means when you submit your preprint, editor will read it and then give it to a peer reviewer. Reviewer will review it and give comments, and that comments will be passed on to the author. Author will revise the paper, and that revised version, when it is submitted to the editor, again it is called post-print author version. And post-print publisher version is the final version that you see, which is finally published, which is actually once after the submission by the author, it will be taken through the editorial process and all the language formattings and all the other formatting, everything is done, and it is finally proofread and it is published. So that is the final version. So these, out of these three, different publishers give different permissions to authors for self-archive. That we will look at it later. Right? Is your question answered completely?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So,
Excuse me, sir.
what are the...
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please.
Yeah, sir. So I have a question. So
Yes.
if the preprint version, if someone is uploading on their website or blog or something, and then the postprint is being, published in a, not an open access journal, the paid journal.
Yes.
But if someone is viewing only this preprint version and they think this is the, do they mention that this is only not a final version? So when you
Yes.
are making a literature out of it,
Yes.
maybe you'll identify a gap, but probably that has been already covered in the post-print version.
Yes, possible. See, that is what that will be taught to you by your teachers when you do your literature review also. When you pick up a preprint, what are the risks involved in using a preprint is something which will be taught to you by your teachers. See, there might be a substantial difference sometimes. Sometimes there won't be a substantial difference also. There will be a marginal difference between a preprint version and a post-print version. But occasionally it may be possible that there might be a substantial difference. So when you use a preprint, you have to always keep it in mind. Your question is correct.
Okay, so we will know if you're seeing a preprint or not.
Yes, definitely. When you look at a preprint repository, it is accepted that it is a preprint, which means this is a draft version of the article.
Okay, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, in hybrid, like in hybrid open access,
Yes.
do we need to pay the article process fees even if it's in open access?
No, see, hybrid open access means essentially it is a commercial subscription based journal where if authors prefer that their article should be available under open access, authors have an option to pay the article processing fee and keep it in open. Clear?
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So shall we move on? Okay. So what are the benefits of publishing under open access when compared to commercial based journals? It's the discovery, the dissemination on the internet of the publications under open access is quite fast. The moment it is released in the website of the journal, it is shared widely across the board on the internet, and it immediately becomes available for everybody. It is the access does not matter because there is no payment involved. There are no charges. There is no limit to the access also. There is no downloading limits. There is no viewing limits. It is available 24/7 on the journal website. Therefore, it is quite inclusive. There is no restriction. Whoever wants to read is always free to check the website and download and read, or read online, whichever they feel they think required for them. And it triggers research faster because information becomes available very fast. So it can be put to use, it can be reused any number of times quite fast than a traditional publication under commercial license. And the visibility is global because it is available on the internet and it is available 24/7. So visibility increases, and once the visibility is more, it leads to more citations, and when the citation increases, the impact of your publication also normally increases. So ideally, publication under open access is always a win-win situation for the authors. And broadly, it leads to the development of knowledge economy because information becomes freely available for everybody to use, and it is fast, it is available very quickly, and it can be put into reuse, right? And in education sector, in research, etc., it can be put into immediate use also. Your teachers can suggest it as readings for scholars. It can be included in other publications also. It can be used for research. So the use facility of publications under open access also is quite fast. However, there are a bit of misconceptions also there about open access. One which is sometimes pointed out is that the authors lose copyright, which is actually not correct. The publications under open access is published under what we call as a Creative Commons license. It is a legal entity, and all the intellectual property rights of the author is protected under these licenses. The author willingly is giving away the commercial part of the copyright under open access. Please remember that there are two aspects for copyright, which I believe your teachers have already talked to you about it. One aspect is the financial aspect, and second is the intellectual property aspect. So under open access, your intellectual property right into your publication is always protected. While when you decide to publish under open access, you yourself willingly and voluntarily agree that you are ready to give your publication free of cost for others, right? So the commercial part you are actually willingly ready to forego, while you retain only the intellectual property right. So author doesn't lose a copyright at all. And another misconception is that open access journals doesn't follow peer reviews, etc., all those standards. That is also wrong. The journal for open access journals follow the same standard as a commercial access journals. It follows all the publishing industry standards, including good quality blind peer review, or sometimes even double blind peer reviews, etc. And another misconception is that it is not indexed in the global databases such as Scopus or Web of Science. That is also wrong. It is always covered under, you can see quite a large number of open access journals are indexed in Scopus and Web of Science and all other global indexing systems. It has got the same impact factor also. People feel that there is no impact factor if you publish under open access, so your citations will have its own issues. No, there won't be any issues. These journals are also considered equally good and equally high quality standard journals, and it has got its own impact factors also. What some more misconceptions are there is that it requires some extra work by authors to do self-archiving. It is not true again. There are self-archiving tools to help authors, so you can look at that and decide which version of article you are allowed to self-archive and how you can do it very easily. Then spamming by predatory publishers. There are some publishers who have come up who start spamming the authors that you can publish with us in 5 working days or you can publish with us in 10 working days and all. But there are methods in which you can identify such predatory publishers also so that you don't fall into their traps. And another misconception is that there are no good open access available journals in your subject. That is also not true. There are quite a large number of open access journals in all subjects. I will be introducing you several such lists where you can check the availability of journals in your subject also, right? These 3 are some good quality publishers who have come up in open access publishing. You can look at those sites also. Biomed Central, they started about 20 years back and currently they claim they are the largest science open access publisher. Currently they publish 272 peer-reviewed open access journals. All are top quality, high impact factor journals. You can look at their website. Second one is Public Library of Science, the PLOS, that's what is called. PLOS has a suite of 12 journals, including one multidisciplinary journal called PLOS One. You please go to their website and just read through the materials and see how good those articles are, how much hits each article is getting, how much visibility those articles are getting. And you will be surprised to find how many articles in economics are there in PLOS One. You will be quite surprised to see. Just take a look at that website and then see. And you can also see the central directory of open access journals, which is called DOAJ. DOAJ, you should essentially go to that website, doaj.org, and spend some time to learn about this site. It will be extremely useful for you for your research career as well as for your future also. Currently, there are more than 16,000 top quality open access journals listed out in DOAJ. You can take a look at that and identify a few of journals in your subject area and start reading those articles. All of them are available for free for you to use. So this is about open access publishing. We will move on to self-archiving. Why self-archiving? Authors can make their articles freely available on the internet. That is what we call as self-archiving. One particular version. There are multiple versions of an article which we discussed already. One is called preprint, which is the draft version of an article. You prepare a manuscript out of your research, and that draft version which you send to the editor of a journal is called preprint. And this is a primary version of an article before peer review, right? That is the first version of an article. Second version is what we call as a post-print author version. What happens here is that once you send the preprint to the editor of a journal, editor or somebody in the editorial board will read the article. They will see that this article is suitable for their journal. They will identify a peer reviewer for your journal article and it will be sent to that reviewer. Reviewer will read and provide comments. That comments will be sent to the author. Author will be asked to revise the article based on the reviewer's comments. And once that revision is done and that revised version is sent by the author, that is the corrected version after including the comments from the reviewer, is sent once again to the editor. This version is called post-print author version. This is the second version. And the third version is called post-print publisher version. What happens here is that after receiving the post-print author version, which is a corrected paper after peer review, once again, editor will pass it on to the editorial committee. It will be taken through the language editing process, then the final formatting and finishing of the paper using their layout and their publishing standards, etc. And the final version after proofreading will be published in that journal. This version is called post-print publisher version. So these three are essentially the versions of a paper. And different publishers have different policies about which version an author can self-archive, that we will come to in a short while. So this is essentially what is self-archiving. What is self-archiving? Authors make their articles freely available on the internet. Either the preprint version or the post-print author version or the post-print publisher version, as the case may be, as allowed by the policy of the publisher, right? And why self-archiving? Why there is self-archiving? Any idea? Self-archiving, once you make articles available openly on the internet, it is read and cited by more people, because you already saw that, right? In open access, the knowledge is freely available on the internet, so more people have visibility to your paper and more people will read it. So essentially, more and more people will cite your paper also. And several funding agencies these days demand that the publications coming out of their financed projects should be available for free for everyone. So that more and more funding agencies are now demanding. So in that case, of course, they will give money for open access article processing charges also. So in that sense also, self-archiving is being promoted in a wide scale. So how about self-archiving? Either through the author's website, which we discussed already. You have a personal website in your institution's page. You can provide a copy of your paper there, or there are third-party subject archives. You can check the internet for that. You can look at arxiv, arxiv.org. That is one very good third-party archiving in repository. Of course, you have REPEC, you have MPRA, SSR, and several large number of subject archives are there. Then, of course, the archive of your home institution also is there. So authors have the option of archiving in any of them, based on the policies of the publisher, right? Like this, if you look at, this is the Wiley's website where they provide their archiving awareness policies. So if you look at different publishers, either Springer or Elsevier or Wiley or Sage, different commercial publishers have their own policies of self-archiving. This might, of course, will give you a confusion. So every time you decide to your publishers, you will have to go to them and then check and then find out, or you would like to first of all decide before sending the paper itself, you would like to see which publisher has maximum flexibility in self-archiving. So to avoid all such confusions, Sherpa Romeo has come up with this particular facility, which you can look at. This was brought out by Sherpa. Sherpa means Secured Hybrid Environment for Research, Preservation and Access, which is an initiative currently hosted in University of Nottingham in UK. In 2004, Sherpa launched a valuable service for researchers called Romeo. This is an online resource which aggregates and analyzes the open access policies from around the world. It provides a summary of publishers' copyright and open archiving policies. So you can look at that. It helps the researcher to clarify which publisher allows open access, which publisher allows archiving of which version of the paper, and other aspects of self-archiving, which includes the embargo also. Embargo, I will also explain. Embargo means essentially publishers might try to protect their commercial interest for a certain period of time. Let us assume you are publishing in a quarterly journal, which means it is published every 3 months. So publisher will say there is an embargo of 3 months. So if you publish your paper in July issue of a particular journal and there is an embargo of 3 months, which means you are allowed to self-archive your paper only when the next issue is released, right? That is, you are allowed to self-archive only in October. Understand? So in that way, and the version also, whether you are allowed to self-archive preprint or whether you are allowed to self-archive a post-print author, or even you are allowed to self-archive a final version, that is the post-print publisher version. That also is provided in this website. You can look at that also. Each entry or record in Romeo provides a summary of publishers' policies, which version of an article can be self-archived, and any other conditions such as embargo, etc. It's a fully searchable database. You can search by the journal's title or you can search by ISSN. ISSN, for your information, I believe some of you know that it is called International Standards Serial Number. Every standard publication will have a unique number at the international level, and it is called ISSN. So you can search by journal title, or you can search by ISSN, or you can search by the publisher's name also. It's a fully searchable database. So take some time, visit the site and learn how to use it. Now, any questions in this? Okay, so we will move on to the next one. So let us assume your research is done and you are ready to publish your paper, and you will feel that you have now learned about open access, you have become a fan of open access. You feel that when you publish in open access, there will be increased visibility to your journal. Of course, open access is there an author paid version. So your visibility for your journal article will be more because it will be available online very fast. So such benefits of open access publishing gave rise to emergence of some dubious and deceptive publishing elements also. They started publishing journals by abusing the author paying model. That is, the APC's attraction was there. These are scam publishers actually, and they publish dubious publications by counterfeiting standardized journals also. These publishers lack transparency. The quality of publications are poor. The content, the editorial process is very questionable. They indulge in unethical practices. There will be no proper peer reviews. Sometimes there will be no peer review at all. The publication quality will be very low. There will be language mistakes. There will be grammatical errors. The layout, the formatting will be extremely poor and unprofessional. There will be no quality control. The idea is that publisher just is interested in making money out of the system. So they will, sometimes you will also get such queries, right? Such unsolicited mails also you might start getting, saying that publish with us in 5 working days or publish with us in a week's time. in a journal with an ISSN. So no journal no standardized professionally run journal will be able to publish an article in 7 days, isn't it? Right? See, you write a journal article of 4,000 words and you send it to an editor. Editor has to either read it or editor has to give it to someone else in the editorial board, and that person has to read it and then decide whether it is publishable according to the objectives of their journal. Then they will have to find a reviewer. The reviewer has to take time to review your paper and give your comments. The comments has to come back to the editor. Editor has to forward the comments to you. You will have to revise your paper based on those comments. That revision will again take time. Then you will have to send the paper back to the editor. Editor has to compare your previous version and your present version, and you will have to cross check the comments of the reviewer also. Then once the editor is satisfied, it will go to the reviewers, it will go to the editorial board for the language editing, then the final formatting, then the proofreading, and then the article will be published, right? This will take anywhere between 3 months to 6 months or even more sometimes. So if someone claim that they can publish in 5 working days, essentially you just try to keep a distance from those publishers. That is the best thing to do, because they are just out there to make money from you. So such traps are there, which as scholars you will have to remember that certain authors just try to exploit the system of open access and make money out of it. In Indian context, the UGC has come up with this particular platform called UGC Care. It was done by the Savitribai Phule University in Pune. They took the initiative of providing the awareness about publication ethics, and they did a very good service for researchers. So UGC decided that the UGC Care will be established in SPPU. As UGC Care means the Consortium for Academic Research Ethics. As scholars in India, it is extremely important that you should be aware of this. Go to this website, UGC Care. You can create a login for you. It is important that you should register and create a login ID and password and start using UGC Care from today onwards. It is extremely important. Any publication that you do within your period of your PhD, as well as after that also, if you are working in India, all those publications in academic sector has to be done essentially in the journals that are listed under UGC Care. You can look at the site. There is what we call as the UGC Care list. This is actually a list of approved journals by UGC. And it is mandatory that all your publications, all your journal publications should be done only in the journals approved by UGC. And that you can check only in this single location. And for that, you have to obtain a login ID and password. That registration process is pretty simple. You can go to this website. There is a login button there. You can register there itself and spend some time, read about the UGC Care program, read about the UGC Care lists. What are the different types of lists there? There are 2 or 3 groups listed out. You can take some time and read it and understand it, and keep visiting this site whenever you need for publishing. So what you should remember in order to avoid the predatory journals traps, always go to the journal website and go through the journal details very carefully. Look at the journal's objectives. See whether the website is a professionally done website or it is just a copy of some other website with full of spelling mistakes and layout mistakes, design errors, etc., etc. Check it whether it's a duplicate website. Look at the details of editor or editorial board members. Can you recognize anybody from that list, or that you have all these people are unheard of? And also cross check their personal websites, because there are cases where predatory journals just will claim that XYZ is our editor, but if you go and cross check in that person's institutional website, that person would never have claimed that he or she is editor of this particular journal also, because they may not have even heard about it. Some journals will do that also. So always cross check. When your editorial board will have quite a large number of reputed professionals in that, always take some time, go to their personal institutional websites or personal website and check whether they claim that they are editor of this journal also. Then look at the journal's coverage, journal's objective. If it is too broad a journal, always be suspicious about it, that there is a possibility that it is a predatory journal. Usually subject journals are very narrow, very specific. The coverage will be very clear. There will be no doubt about their objectives of what are the areas they are covering. But when the journal says it is a journal of science, social science and humanities research, you can obviously think that there is some problem in it, because they are just out there only to make money. Then the journal will claim that it is indexed under Scopus, it is indexed under Web of Science, it is indexed under DOAJ. So always cross-check those sites also. If they claim that it is under DOAJ, go to DOAJ's website and see whether the journal is listed there. Because Directory of Open Access Journals will give you only standardized journals, which maintain a high quality standard. So they will never include a predatory journal in that list. And Scopus and Web of Science are also like that. So when there is an indexing claim made by the journal, always remember to cross-check in those concerned websites also. And look at the peer review process. What are the timeline to publish? Again, when they say publishing in 5 working days or publishing in 1 week, or express publishing, publish with us in 3 days. So if they make such claims, and if they just make a impression in you that they are just out there only to make money from you, then always be on the alert. Then read the past issues of the journal. Randomly open the journal articles and see how is the formatting, how is the language editing, what is the standard of the article, is it quite good, or is it tolerable, or is it bad, whatever it is. You will find that you will make an impression about it, right? And finally, in India, always cross-check the UGC CARE list of journals also to see whether the journal is listed there, so that your problem will be solved under your publications program. So always think and check before you submit in such journals, right? Now, research becomes fruitful only when the results are published and widely disseminated, right? That is, of course, clear. And selecting a suitable journal for your article is also very important. It's that you have done your hard work and you have come up with a publication, and then you can't just publish in any other journal. It's not possible. You will have to find the right journal for your publication, so that it will get maximum visibility, maximum citations, and your article will make the maximum possible impact on the research community. So that is extremely important for you. So this matching of your journal article with the correct journal is extremely important. And these days, with the help of information technology, there are quite a large number of tools which you can use to identify good journals. If you just look at the internet, there are several such journal finder tools, or journals. They are called journal finder tools. They are called journal suggester tools. They are sometimes called journal recommendation tools. One is Elsevier Journal Finder. which uses smart technology and vocabulary to match the journal with the article. There is another one called JANE, or what we call as the Journal Article Name Estimate. You can look at these websites. I have given you the links. Go to these websites and spend some time and see how you can try to test it out. Also, you will have some publication with you. Just take the abstract of it and the title of it and try to find out whether there is a good journal which you can think of publishing also. Another one is by Wiley, which is called Journal Finder, which uses the search mechanism based on title and abstract also for finding out the right journal for you. Then there is another one called Manuscript Matcher, which is provided by the EndNote. It helps the author to find the journal using the title, abstract, references, etc. Then if you are interested in publishing in DOAJ's listed journals, you can use this website called Open Journal Matcher, which helps you to find the journal using the abstract of your article. It compares your abstract with the DOAJ and it recommends the suitable journal for you for publications. Then there is this Springer Journal Suggester. You can try that also, which helps you to find the correct journal for you with the help of title, abstract, subject, key terms, etc. So you can try these sources and start working on this. Spend some time, go to these websites and then start using them.